Okay. All right, man. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good, good. All right, man. Let's hone it in. You know the drill, man. Episode 132 of the Masters in Creation podcast, where everyone is a master of their own creation. I need y'all to sit tight because this intro is going to be a bit long because we have an accomplished guest in our midst once again. Our guest today is she brands herself as a socially conscious journalist, media personality, entrepreneur. She was on Pittsburgh's 40 Under 40. Just to give you a little, pizzazz on that, we have Natalie Bencivenga in the building. Natalie, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. And you got my name right.
Yeah,
I'm
glad. Awesome. I'm glad. Awesome.
I always tell people just think Italian, Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
and then they go, oh, okay. I get
Bencivenga.
Yeah.
Love that. Yo, thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
No, thank you so much for for joining us again. You're someone who is very, very accomplished in your field, and just for people who may not know, I just think it's gonna be dope for them to see this conversation. Just know your story and just like how just you've built the career you have for yourself, honestly. So again, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It's always weird being on this side.
Yeah, you were saying right, yeah.
Uncomfortable with all the praise, and I'm trying to work on that. So
Yeah.
thank you, because I'm sure like most of us like creatives, entrepreneurs,
Yeah, right.
you feel like you're never doing anything. So when someone tells you that you're doing
Man,
things, you're
yeah.
like, I don't know.
Am I doing
Is
that
this
stuff?
what's
Like,
happening?
yeah. Who is
So
this
thank
person?
you.
No, and like I think that's very, very well put. So again, like I just think that people would love to hear your story. Just kind of jumping into it. You're from Pittsburgh originally, correct?
Yeah, I actually grew up in a little town called Oakmont, which is
Okay, yeah.
one of the suburbs of the city.
Okay.
But I moved into the city when I started school at Pitt, and I've always had like a base here. I've worked in other spaces, but Pittsburgh has always been home one way or another.
Yeah, no, of course. And like, how was growing up at Oakmont for you? When was childhood fun?
Oakmont was funny because when you're there as a kid, it's very parochial, and you can't wait to leave. But looking back on it, how lucky was I that all these people knew who I was, and not in that way, but
right.
They kept tabs on
Right.
Like you couldn't really get away with anything because grandma knew 4 people on that block.
Very
and,
like village mentality. Like right.
Everybody was raised.
Sure.
And I look back and I'm like, damn, that was a really good.
Absolutely right. Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah.
So like as a child, like did your parents kind of know like what industry you would kind of end up in? Was it something that like you just kind of found out internally, or like how did that go?
My parents, I was lucky in the sense that they were both in the medical field.
Okay.
And I was always very academically inclined, but they never ever pushed me into medicine
in any one direction. Okay.
Always just like be who you are. But my mom always said I came out 30, like I was just an old soul. I was the eldest one, the eldest daughter, and just
I found out about like that about myself, like just but like the face though, like I may have just been born 30 just from like
30,
the neck up, like not immaturity, but like
But it was just one of those things where I was a very curious kid.
Yeah, right.
I was getting into things all the time.
Of course, right.
I loved being creative,
right,
and I also loved school. So I just was constantly wanting to learn things. So I never really could just land on one particular interest. So no, I don't think they really knew what the hell I was doing.
Right.
I
No.
don't know what I wanted.
That's
to do,
fair. And it just kind of because like I definitely resonate with just like kind of having just hands on like or just like in different things as far as like your interests and like creatively. And how did you like, because for a long time that was a hurdle for me as far as like I don't know what to land on, but like as like I'm kind of like going through life and like kind of getting older, I'm just like that may not necessarily be like a bad thing, so like how did you balance that, just as far as like kind of noticing that and then moving from there?
Yeah, I think our generation and the generation coming up, we're never going to know what a pension is. We're never going to know what a 30-year career looks like. That's just not the way the world works.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was sort of liberating when I realized, like, I don't have to just be defined by what I do. I never want to be defined by what I do. I want to be defined by the person I am and the qualities that I possess that make people feel a little bit taller when they leave the room.
Yeah.
And if you carry with the idea of the value system that you bring, you can apply it to anything that you do, no matter if you go into medicine or music, or you want to be like, somebody in retail or whatever your passion is. You're an excellent plumber, whatever you want to do.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
It's how do you present yourself to the world, and what are the characteristics that you want to showcase? And to me, I learned empathy from my mom, and I learned strength from my dad.
There you go.
And I've always kind of carried those with me in all the spaces that I've gone.
That's beautiful. No, and I completely agree. So just like when you were younger, like how did you kind of express your creativity? Like what were like your some of your outlets?
Okay. So,
let's get into it.
I loved theater.
Yeah.
I know that's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
I loved writing.
Okay.
So, but I really, so when we were growing up, I was 12 when we finally got like a family computer.
Okay,
that was,
right,
like,
yeah,
when
okay.
the internet came about, which
Right.
really ages me, but here we are. We accept where we are in life.
Yeah, right.
But I was obsessed with getting a typewriter.
Really? Okay.
I loved writing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was just like the visceral sound of it, but I loved the clicking noise.
Yeah,
of
like the
keys.
typewriter is like it's a very sensory experience.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I felt like I was really doing something.
Yeah, right.
Different from
Ding.
a computer.
Yeah, yeah.
So my parents got me an electric typewriter when I was like 11,
That's
and
crazy. Yeah.
that was.
Did you
amazing.
ask for it, or did it
No,
just kind
it
of
was just
okay?
I didn't even, I told them I liked typewriters, but that was like a surprise.
That's crazy.
for
Yeah,
Christmas,
that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I loved singing. I still love singing. I love music. My dad was very, very musical. He played the guitar, the accordion, the piano. He sang. He was so musical. So we were always listening to everything.
Okay.
Stevie Wonder, the Beatles, Zeppelin, like all of
incredible influences. Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up in a very artistic home, considering both my parents. My dad was a chiropractor and my mom was a nurse.
Wow.
So, and then my mom loved to cook. So there was always, food and colors, and just, it was a very artistic home. So I think I channeled a lot of it into the arts. And of course, I loved playing sports. I was just
what'd you play?
I was an active kid.
Yeah, yeah.
I couldn't sit still. I mean, you're going to laugh. I'm 5'4" on a good day.
Right,
And
okay.
in grade school and in middle school, I was center on the
the
basketball team. So that just shows you how
Well,
little we all
yeah.
were,
I mean, yeah, second
right?
grade,
Right?
right. We need a
basketball.
center. We need a body.
It's fine, it's fine. But I love basketball.
Yeah.
I love tennis.
Okay.
Swimming,
Okay.
baseball. Anything physical, just
Yeah.
a dance, whatever.
Okay.
I just like doing stuff.
No. That's beautiful. No, I mean, like, and again, just so people get like, just like again, the full scope of just like, what necessarily like, led to the career. So, just kind of fast forwarding here. You mentioned that, you went to Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
You had 2 degrees, or 2 degrees. One was in philosophy, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other was, I got it right here, biology.
Yes.
And I mean, just like at what point for you, because like I saw the biology major, I'm just like, like where did the pivot happen? Like,
Sure.
and like I know just from my experience in college, like people who like were studying biology, it didn't look like they were having time to do other shit. Like, yeah.
No.
So I'm like, yes, like, at what point for you, and this is kind of like a layer question, forgive me, but at one point for you, did you make the pill like, all right, I'm going to be, or I'm going to pursue a career in journalism? And then another fact that people, may or may not know, again, you got accepted into medical school at one point and, deferred your seat in order to pursue your career in journalism. Yeah. So, when did that pivot happen for you? And then as far as like when you deferred your seat, what was the family reaction? What was life looking like for you? And like, if you want to go into that.
Yeah, I was always a girl with a plan.
Right.
Like I said, always been really into academics. So I figured I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
I wanted to help people. And so I was really, really good in science and math. And I thought, this is what I'll do. And when I got to college, I decided I took one intro to philosophy class and I fell in love with philosophy. And I realized I like to think, right?
Yeah.
And I can get pretty esoteric in my and existential. So I thought, well, this is kind of cool. So philosophy just sort of taught me how to think.
Okay.
Whereas the biology was like what you had to think about, right? And they really informed one another in odd ways. But the moment that I realized I wanted to pivot was actually the day I got accepted into medical school.
Wow.
And
what a day
to pivot, to be 22.
Yeah.
And I got the letter and I carried it around for probably 2 weeks. And I was just having what I now know as panic attacks. Because
so I reflected on it for a little bit. Yeah. And in hindsight, that's hilarious.
I just couldn't. All my other friends that were getting in,
right.
It's so hard. I can't.
Of course,
I can't even it is
to get into medical school.
It's so hard.
Really?
Yes. And I remember taking the MCATs and girls just hearing them throwing up in the bathroom right before we go in because everybody is. It's so stressful, right?
That's crazy.
So when I got in, I was feeling all these conflicting emotions of like, I should want to do this.
Yeah, right.
How? Why are you even? But there was something in my gut that just said, this is not for you. And I will say one of the earliest lessons I've learned about life is, and what I learned this in biology, but more importantly, learning it through experience, the gut is the first brain.
That's what,
right? So
that instinct, that instinct.
If your gut is telling you something, you need to sit with that. Because the only times that I've really gone off the rails is when I ignored that intuition, right? And I think there's
I'm only like, because me too.
Right? Like, it's true.
Every
though.
time
Every
I've
time.
gone off the rails,
Every
I've ignored it.
Yes.
It's a fact,
It's
though. Yeah,
true.
right.
And so I remember I was really nervous, and I took the letter to my parents, and I just said, I don't want to go.
Yeah, right.
Can I defer my seat for a year? If I can't get anything to happen creatively in a year, I will go to medical school. And they were both like, dude, you're the one putting all this pressure on yourself to do this. Like, we just want you to do what you want to do.
Right.
So I did defer my seat for a year, and I had never free fallen like that because I'd always been so structured.
Right, regimented. Right, right.
So to be 22, 23 and really not have a plan, for me, looking back, it seems so silly because now you're like, oh my God, you're such a baby.
Yeah, right, right.
I tell all of the young women and men that I know, don't have a plan in your early 20s. That's insanity.
Yeah,
like the fact that we put all this pressure on young people, it's maddening to me. But you're still figuring out who you are.
Absolutely.
But I knew enough to know that wasn't the moment to do that. And so I deferred my seat, and my one girlfriend had just moved to New York City. So I went up to visit her, and I was just kind of like hanging out at her apartment as one does.
Yeah, right.
I stumbled into this whole creative space with people and experiences, and I kind of just never looked back. And I started running a web zine at the time.
We'll get into that too.
Doing all this media work in New York, and I was just like, this is what I'm really feeling good about doing. How can I make this my own? And that was just kind of how the journey began. So in my early to mid 20s. Yeah.
And like what was the creative world that like you just stumbled into?
Yeah. So it was interesting because I met this one woman, and she was hosting a show on New York One, and so she'd have me on as a guest all the time. And
that's great.
I was always giving relationship advice. I didn't know what the hell I was talking about, but it was just really fun. And then I was like, oh, I'm good at this. We're getting callers. It was sort of my first forte into radio.
Dope. Okay, nice.
All of that stuff. Then I started doing XM radio. I started going on, of all places, Fox News. Which had this show many years ago called The Strategy Room, and the head director at New York University was the host of it, and I used to go on all the time as a relationship expert.
Right.
And finally one day he just said to me, you're really good at this. You should get some letters after your name. And that's how I ended up a few years later going back and getting my master's in social work. It was because of what happened in New York. So I was running a web zine. I was doing all of these different appearances. I was writing for the Huffington Post, for Teen Vogue, for SheKnows.com, like all these different spaces.
That's crazy.
And really just like building up skills around things I wanted to do. And it was the inception of social media. It was the beginning of Twitter. YouTube was really just starting. This was in the mid, this was like 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
So I was learning all of this marketing, all these marketing tools. They were free and it was new. And so it was just a matter of figuring out how do you maximize and putting all of those critical thinking skills to use to your advantage. And so it was a constant hustle. I mean, it was just constant hustle.
Had to be.
But it was fun,
It's the big city, baby.
Yeah. And it was New York.
Yeah, right.
You go out and like you're having dinner and Tom Cruise is at the next table over. You see Jay-Z and you're just like, what is life
sure.
Right now?
Yeah, right.
New York was just a really cool place to be, and I understand why so many creatives go there because there's this pulse, this
man, of course, right,
humming
that
you
right.
don't see or experience in a lot of cities, and I wish we had a little bit more of that here, and that's why
it's on its way.
Oh yeah, that's why I love doing stuff like this and tapping into creative spaces with others, because it's here. We're just in these little pockets.
It is well on its way, and we're just like, I'm on the pod here. We're like a big proponent of just like what this city is going to become in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15, and it's happening before our very eyes, really. So, it's and I completely agree with you. So, how long were you in New York?
I was bouncing back and forth.
Okay.
I ran the webzine for about 5 years.
Yep.
And then I came back fully when I went back to school in 2011, got my master's in social work, and started working as a therapist. I got my license, and my business partner and I, we dissolved the magazine. We were having creative differences, and I went full throttle for about a year in the world of mental health, and I was just depressed.
Yeah.
I was working with families in homes, so I did mobile therapy all over the county, was in all different types of spaces, worked with all different types of wonderful people, but I had no creative outlet at that point, and I could just feel.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah,
again. There was something happening, and then I heard that the scene editor at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette was retiring. I didn't know what the hell the scene column was, but I thought, sure, I'll apply. What's the worst that could happen? Right. And 3 interviews later, I got the job, and that was really what changed the course of my life.
That's crazy. Yeah. I definitely want to and just you can kind of go off what you said, as far as your delve into being a therapist, because I did see that you were practicing therapist for some years, but your personal mental state necessarily wasn't the best. What was the dichotomy of that, helping people with their mental health, but knowing on the back end that stuff may you're not necessarily aligned with what you want to do internally.
I'm really good at compartmentalizing.
Fair play. Yeah.
Right? So it was,
I feel that.
It's like a performance when you're in
of course, yeah.
You're on, and I'm 110% kind of person. So it's if I'm feeling awful, I turn it
double
on,
down.
I go in. Yeah, you double down. You even turn it up.
Right.
You do what you need to do. And I cared about what I was doing. I cared about all the people that I worked with. And that I supported. And it was there were just those moments where I would be drowning in paperwork. I would be, sitting alone thinking, I can't live off of this. This isn't even enough money, and I have my master's, and I can't even survive on this. I've got to do something else. And when I got the job at the Post-Gazette, it was everything changed. And it wasn't I was making all this money there either, but it was more about the opportunity was more aligned with the vision I had for my life.
Nice.
And I was turning 30 at that point, and it just felt like the right time to turn a page.
Absolutely.
But I will say this, as somebody that's been in media a really long time, and as somebody that calls themselves a socially conscious journalist, I feel as though I earned that because my work in social work grounds everything that I do in the work in the community. And I do look at journalism as a form of social work.
100%.
And if people would, I think, take that perspective more often with media, I believe in solutions-driven journalism. We could actually make actual change. That's why with all of the projects that I do, you'll always see there's action items at the end of them, because it's not enough to just talk about a systemic crisis.
Right.
What the hell are we going to do about it?
Right.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Completely agree. And as far as the doubling down aspect, when you got to turn that on, I 100% resonate and relate to that. It's just, it's crazy because the dichotomy of being a therapist, but then because I think there's this stigma around therapists, they've just got to feel they're the Zen, the sensei, nothing gets to them, but no, those are human beings too with lives, lives, complete lives outside of their job.
Yes.
So I can only imagine just how wild that was for you.
It was wild. And it was also wild because I was mostly working with young boys from ages 2 to 20. And most of them had severe mental health issues and or had suffered severe sexual trauma. So it was such an incredibly challenging space. There was just no room to even be thinking about your own stuff.
Right.
It was just, this is where I need to be right now. This child needs me right now. This family needs me. And when you clock off, I remember one of my teachers telling me, she worked at the jail, and she said, you have to give yourself a visual cue when you leave these spaces. Pretend you're walking through a waterfall. And I still use that technique, even if I've just had a bad day. Okay. There's something about the idea of walking through water that I think is very cleansing. And I would do that. And it actually would really, really help sort of reset my mental self because you were dealing with heavy things.
Yeah, right. Like just that technique, I kind of go into that a little bit more. Like, would you just like kind of like take some deep breaths and imagine you're just walking to a waterfall? Was that like pretty much like the premise of that? Or?
Yeah, as you're walking, I would just take a couple of deep breaths, close my eyes, and picture like a beautiful waterfall in a tropical setting, wherever you want to be, and that you're just like standing under it and walking through it. And it really does help. So whatever relaxation technique you need to utilize in your life, utilize it. Because I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to do all of these things and to do them all well all of the time. It doesn't really leave you any space to be vulnerable. And I give a lot of people space and grace all day long, but I probably give it to myself the least. And so it's a matter of trying to figure out, how am I going to be a little nicer to myself today?
Right, man. Yeah, no, I literally saw something on Instagram, pretty much like preaching. I said like it was a comedian. Do you know Angela Johnson, the comedian? Yeah. Well, yeah, she did
I'm gonna go
no. She like did this super old but like super viral sketch on like Mad TV called Bon Qui Qui. She was like a fast food.
Yes.
Like if you see this skit, But anyways, like she was pretty much like just like saying like the exact same thing. How like she was just kind of like feeling low one night, and then like she just wasn't necessarily saying like the nicest language to herself, and like she got like super emotional, but like. On the day after, like, she was just like, yeah, like I just in hindsight, I'm just like, like I was not speaking to myself in a very conducive way, and like that stuff matters, like it can definitely affect, just like your mental lens and just like, how you move through things. So, completely agree with that. Again, going back, to like, kind of like a little bit after, you left college, like you said, like, you're a pretty regimented person, like for the most part, got a plan, like as far as, forging a path in a journalist or a journalism career, like what was your plan? Like, like did you have any like I know, right?
Were
there like any benchmarks? Did you I feel that like just like just kind of talk about like what the quote unquote plan was like for you, just even kind of getting your foot in the door. Like
I think for me the original plan. So here's the thing about plans.
Yeah, right.
They change.
Yeah, right.
And at first, the original plan was I just want to get my foot in the door.
Sure, right.
And so working as the scene columnist was a really interesting gig because I did not grow up looking at society pages.
Yeah.
I didn't go to debutante balls. We were very just normal middle class people. There was, I didn't even know what column was. So when I took it over, I realized I had an opportunity because the way it had been laid out prior, it was very much $500 dinners. Here's sort of the white savior of the day on the front page, for whatever organization.
Right.
And I really flipped it on its head. And I said, because of my background in social work, there are communities that are never represented in these pages.
Sure.
We see them on the police blotter. We see them in the sports section. We never see the community work being done by all different types of members. And that was what inspired me. So you could see maybe you would still have your corporate bigwigs, but next to them would be the community pancake dinner, at Hazelwood that was going to support their local food bank. And that ruffled some feathers. And I did not expect that. And because I was pretty naive, which looking back is a good way to go into things.
Right.
You're too naive to know what's coming.
Exactly, right.
And I had a few CEOs call me.
What were they mad about? This is like the fact that like it was sharing space next to pancakes or like that news?
They were sharing space next to people that did not look like them. And there's a lot of racism and segregation in Pittsburgh. And I think we have to talk about it and deal with it. And this little page kind of all of a sudden flipped the script on a lot of what we should be expecting.
So how did they even what was the approach to you? Like,
what do you think you're doing?
Oh shit.
Don't you know who I am?
Oh damn.
What else did I hear? This is my page.
Damn.
And I gotta tell you, as a 30-year-old at the time, younger woman, from, I would say, more humble. My grandparents everybody came from very humble background.
Yeah, right.
It was a power trip.
Yeah.
I was like,
of course.
Oh my gosh. And I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah, right.
I realized I had power.
Yeah, right.
And what was I going to do with this power?
How?
And who was I going to piss off? And who was I going to bring into the light, into the spotlight? And I took it incredibly seriously, because to me, that page could help to transform the way that we saw ourselves as a city, because everybody who's anybody wanted to be on that page. This was what I had been told over and over and over again. So I took that responsibility very seriously. I was one of the, I would often be the first person to even highlight a group or an organization. And then all of a sudden, all this media attention would come to them. And I started understanding in that moment the larger power that media had.
Right.
And as someone that worked in nonprofit spaces, I remember during like weeks where there weren't a lot of events happening, I would call things, let's make a scene. And I would highlight tiny nonprofits, not small ones.
Right.
Tiny ones.
Yeah.
And I would put wish lists at the bottom of the column, and people actually would then send items.
That's nice.
To the organization. And I just realized, like, this is how journalism can be community work.
Sure.
In a very real way.
Definitely.
And so it was very exciting over the past, those 6 years that I worked for the Post-Gazette and ran that column. I put everything I had into that space, and I ended up starting doing video work there. I got nominated for a Mid-Atlantic Emmy for a show that I produced. I'd never done video. You know, you learn as you go.
Right, absolutely.
I believe if you have like passion and you have an open mind and you are willing to take criticism and you are willing to take praise at the same level of concern.
Absolutely, right.
And if you're always willing to learn from people that are smarter than you in these spaces, and that's the key. You have to be a lifelong student. You can make a mark. And, you know, leaving the Post-Gazette was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. But while I was there, I threw everything that I could into that work because I believed in the communities. I love this city, and I wanted to not only showcase the very best of it, but I wanted to showcase all of the very best of it.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely. How did you, like, that initial, I guess, conflict, if you want to call it that, like, you know, just like that initial friction, like, how did you, like, what was the aftermath of that? Would that end up being?
Yeah, it passed.
Okay, yeah, right.
I mean, this is the other thing you learn too, right? You ruffle feathers.
Yeah.
If you're not doing it.
You know, yeah, exactly,
and
right?
I will tell you on the flip side.
Sure.
I received phone calls from people saying, I see what you're doing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
dope.
those were the
that's
calls
dope.
that fueled me.
No, that's dope, yeah.
Because then I was like, oh,
okay,
this is important to someone.
Right.
This means something.
Yep.
They're now, representation is key, right? If I can see it, I can be it.
Mm-hmm.
If I can showcase all these different wonderful people in our communities and showcase them doing things that are bigger than them, then what can we do? What can we accomplish? And so I started doing a lot of speaking engagements. I MC a lot of events. I wanted to have my hand in the community in a bigger way.
Right.
And it was really a joyful, exhausting period of my life.
Yeah, right. Sure.
It really was, yeah.
And like that even just puts the battery in your back to be like, all right, like I don't mind pissing like some people off like at this
if
point.
You're pissing off the right people.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, no, don't piss off the wrong people.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's the key.
That's the key.
Yeah, right.
And I mean that in the sense that I'm not trying to upset anybody.
Of course.
Wasn't trying to hurt anybody.
No, you were coming from a genuine place. Like again, like you weren't trying to attack anyone. Like you were just doing what you felt was your best job in the best way possible. And it just happened to be that someone just would having like an ego trip about, you know what.
And let's be real too. change is hard for people.
Fair play.
Right?
Yeah.
And when you've been in a space and you've had recognition in a way for a very, very long time, you do feel a sense of ownership in those places. And I respect that and I understand it. But I do believe that we're only as good as we can grow, right? So if we're not willing to grow...
Natalie dropping jewel. Like, she's dropped, this is like the 18th jewel. Y'all follow along, yeah.
It's like if you don't grow, you die.
Yeah, right. No,
right?
absolutely.
So that's kind of where I looked at this column, where it was like, how do I make it relevant for the people coming up?
Yeah.
The people like me, who maybe never really paid much attention to this before because it didn't speak to them. How do I get it to sing? Right. And that was really what I focused on.
No, I love that. How do I get it to sing? It's 19. No. No, and then just even on that same note, right? Because like, again, like you were starting just like the game and like, oh wait, mid 2000s, so like a lot of stuff was just like, burgeoning. But just from like your perspective, like would you consider like the journalism industry like a male dominant industry? Like I would say just like by default, yeah, right? Just because.
Here's what's interesting about it, to me anyway. It's as you start to climb, there's less people that look like you and less people that look like me.
Right.
And it starts to
funny funny how that goes, right?
Funny how that goes, right? And it starts to just become very white and male and middle-aged.
Right.
And because of that, I've bumped heads.
Sure, right, yeah, right.
Because I have a different way of approaching things. I look at things more collectively, systemically. What can we be? Right. Not how do we stay where we are. And the people in power always want to stay in power, right?
Of course.
So when we're trying to make change, it can be very, very challenging. And that's why it takes all of us, because it's not just going to be what I accomplish or what you accomplish. It's going to be what we accomplish. Yeah. And that's how we're going to move the needle.
Absolutely.
And I've also learned you're not going to move it very far in your own lifetime. You may want to. Right. But it's going to take collective effort, continual effort, more and more and over and over. And so we both stand on shoulders of people that came before us, and people are then going to stand on ours.
Absolutely.
And we're going to keep going until we finally get over that wall, and we're going to tear that wall down.
Absolutely.
Because I always think about, not only am I trying to hold the door open, I'm trying to rip the door open. I don't want
fuck
the
door.
Yeah.
Let's get in here. Let's move and shake. Like, come on, man.
Come on, because there is room. I truly believe we live in a space of abundance or scarcity. And when we live in a space of abundance, a lot can change for the better. But we have to all want it. And I think this is why journalism truly is tied to democracy. Because if we're all forced to keep our heads down and just trying to stay alive, we can't ever look up. Right?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
If we have a free press that can report on what's happening and keep the powers that be in check, then some of us sometimes have a chance to look up.
Yeah, right.
And that's what I want for all of us.
I feel that. And as far as because like, just kind of going off what what you're talking here, what do you think like the current state of the media is? Like do you think like there's have been improvements in like the responsibility of it and like and just like the way that the audience is showing things, or like do you think like it's taken some steps back?
I think it's a really complicated problem we have found ourselves in, because on the one hand, legacy media has been the gatekeepers, and it has been predominantly a white male, upper class white male dominated industry in terms of leadership on the way down. Billionaires have always owned media outlets. Right?
Isn't it like 10? Yeah, that's crazy, right?
I mean, even the Post-Gazette, the Block family, they're worth hundreds of millions. The Trib used to be owned by a billionaire. This is not unusual.
No.
But I think what has been interesting is because of YouTube, because of podcasts, because of Instagram and TikTok, the gatekeeping has quickly fallen away, and there's been this populist movement, and I use that word intentionally, that has taken over media. And on the one hand, I think it's great because we all deserve an opportunity to share our thoughts. But on the other hand, then we all have the opportunity to share our thoughts.
Facts.
Guess what?
Yeah, right.
Some people's thoughts are not based in reality.
You should have probably kept that.
Yeah, like you could have just kept that one to yourself.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you.
nah, man. People saw 140 characters and did not know how to act.
Lord.
Man,
let me tell you.
Yeah.
And then you have the let's say bad actors who are spreading misinformation, like the Alex Jones characters of the world, and you have people like Donald Trump who are saying things like fake news, and then you actually have fake news being brought on by generative AI that our government doesn't know how to check because they don't even know how to work their email because these people are so old.
How comforting is that, knowing that the government cannot differentiate AI-generated things between reality? Insane.
So you have this perfect storm of a time in our history where we were talking a little bit about the importance of journalism to save democracy.
Sure, right, yeah.
We are teetering on the edge of fascism. It doesn't surprise me that these things are all aligning at the same time. So what is the antidote for that? The antidote for that is understanding the educational component of being an informed citizen, right? And that takes, once again, all of us. We all have to want to know who our sources are and the source material. Now, ironically enough, when we see, let's say, reputable independent journalists or content creators online, where do they pull their source material when they're showing you something on a green screen? It's usually the New York Times, The Guardian, Axios, Politico, all these legacy media spaces that we had to rail against, right? So what I hope, and I talk about this a lot on my radio show, but what I hope to see in the future is legacy media calling in the independent journalists.
Right,
The influencers. Calling in the content creators.
The new media.
Out, because we're not speaking to each other.
Yeah, right.
And that's wherein lies the larger problem.
Right. No. I mean, I completely agree. And like, just even like, you're starting to see like on some scales, like, my mind goes to like some of the sports pundits, like they're kind of, and like obviously that's like a separate, just lane of media, but just to kind of, go off what you're saying, like as far as just like a bigger media entity or like one of like the legacy, entities like an ESPN, like inviting, just like an independent sports pundit who's like, got a following on Twitter and like, just kind of giving them that platform, but obviously like on like some of like the, more, just like news related platforms, like I think that would be a huge move. And like are they really like not like, because like I've seen some clips of like where they do that, but like is it not really like are they just kind of like getting on that train?
So I think the other problem here is funding. A lot of newsrooms, when the internet really kicked up in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, news outlets didn't really know how to react, and because
that's fair.
They never figured out how to monetize it. And unfortunately, what we're really seeing now are more and more news deserts all around the country, which allows for that rise of misinformation from these bad actors. So we really need to be strengthening local news and encouraging more local outlets to not only exist, but we need to encourage foundations and nonprofit spaces and corporate spaces to support these things. Because people like myself, I keep playing with this idea. Do I start a Patreon? Should I start a Substack? You're trying to find a way to monetize what you're doing, because for somebody that consumes news but doesn't create it, it's a hell of a lot of work. It's a hell.
It's a lot. It's a lot, man. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. It's insane. And just apart from that, the content alone, like what you're watching a 90-second video on, is just like, okay, so this is horrible. Yeah.
And how do you balance what you're seeing from what you can actually do? And then how do you balance your own mental health?
Man.
It's a cluster.
It's a lot, man.
We all need to get better at, how we're consuming our news.
I mean, like, what is like the best? I mean, it's just like, how do you? Because like, obviously, lowering the screen time. We all know, but like, the middle ground to stay informed, but also like not have it just be just like the nucleus of like, what you're doing when like you're not doing something productive. Like,
I know.
What's the,
That's really hard because these apps are designed to addict us.
I mean, come on.
I mean, that's just we're just being honest.
Well, yeah,
right?
no, absolutely, for sure.
They're designed to make you
the
feel
dopamine, like
yes,
whatever, like notification you get.
high,
Yeah, right.
And then you feel real sad.
Yeah,
and
right.
then you
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
high.
yeah.
It's awful, right?
Crazy.
So
right, yeah.
I think it's important to try to set healthy boundaries for yourself. And I love how I say that.
Yeah.
Who the hell does it?
Yeah, right.
So my assistant, actually, she has on her phone an app that before you can get onto Instagram or TikTok or whatever apps you use, it actually pops up and it says, do you actually want to go on Instagram? Or do you and then half the time she's like, no, I actually don't. And she put it back down, and it's almost like this little like
it's like, hey, you sure?
You actually, or are you just doom scrolling because you're bored?
Right.
Or are you just shopping on Amazon because you're bored? I mean, how much are we doing out of habit and not really out of conscientious, mindful decision making?
Yeah.
And reclaiming that. And I've been trying to, because I mean, I'm guilty of this.
Of course,
it's our job.
Right.
So, but I've definitely, it's kind of funny because I just started doing this probably in the last month. After 8 o'clock, I literally take my phone, I put
and throw it in the Monongahela.
Yeah, exactly. Believe me, I wish I could.
Yeah.
And then I put it in my bedroom,
and
I will close the door, and I physically have to remove it from
your presence.
I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then I feel good.
Yeah,
but
right.
If it's just like sitting next to
right
me,
here in that
convenient
old pocket.
And it's like, why can't I just watch a TV show?
Yeah, right.
Why do I need to be watching like, what has happened to our brains? So I try to be conscientious because I'm on it for work a lot.
I'll be honest, like, I can't remember. Nah, let me not say that, but
pretend no one's listening.
Yeah. But I cannot. Honestly, like, it'll take me a bit to just remember the last movie I watched without checking, like, at least at some point, or just like reaching, you know what I mean? Like, and it's mostly when I'm in the theater, like, I don't do it because I think now movies have kind of like gone through this evolution, like they kind of died maybe during COVID, and then, like, streaming was the uptick, but now that, like, we're kind of back on the up, that it's an experience that people are still willing, like, to go pay for. So, like, I'm locked in. But outside of that, like, if I'm just at home on Netflix, oh my gosh.
No,
like, it's literally like, and like, what's funny? because like I missed something. I'll rewind something, go back to it. I'll be like, damn, I missed it again.
Yep.
Right back to it. Damn, again. I'm just like, yo, I rewinded the same part. It's been half an hour.
I know. And that's with the subtitles on in English.
Yeah. With the lights on. Like, it's just like,
there's no reason for me not to know what's happening here.
Insane. And that's like, you're literally bouncing between two screens.
And it's not healthy. And then we expect more from the kids than we as adults are capable of, right?
Right? Yeah, it's crazy.
Their little brains can't, they literally can't hold it all. And we want them to do something none of us are willing to do.
Right.
That's not okay.
Come on,
so we have to figure out a way to live in harmony with these objects. And I, for me, at least right now, the only way I can do that is to physically separate myself from it.
Yeah, right.
What does that say? I don't know, but at least it's giving me some sense of peace. Like, I just started watching Shogun, and I actually was watching it.
I heard that's fire. I've been recommended. I mean, like, I think I might now that she.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah. For sure.
Put your phone in the other room.
Yeah, I guess we'll figure it out once the AI uprises and we fight that war.
Right.
So that'll be
fun.
The
way AI is eating itself, I think we'll win that war.
Hopefully, man. Right. Forgive me because I am jumping around. I just kind of wanted just your perspective on this, because again, you said that you had a magazine earlier in your career. And then, also, again, like you did practice, as a licensed therapist, again, which is crazy. But just kind of looking at that and just like looking at how intensive those careers can, because I mean, running your own magazine is crazy. It's not like you're working for a magazine. You're running your own publication. Insane. Yeah. So like, that's like, super intensive, like, super time intensive, but it's also is, like you mentioned, like you're dealing with heavy stuff on the therapist end with people's, just their life traumas, so like, what do you think is, internally that's allowing you to just kind of balance these spinning plates, or just like kind of hop in those two different industries? Like,
I do think, because I did both of them for a while at the same time, and I truly think I just have a lot of energy.
That's fair, yeah.
And I don't mean that in a valuation way.
Yeah, right.
I'm a high energy person.
Yeah, right.
Strong. I like to have my hands in a lot of things. I like to be in control. So running a webzine made a lot more sense than working for one, even though I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Right.
But I like jumping in the deep end of pools. This is like part of my MO that I've learned about myself over the years.
That's dope though.
I
yeah.
mean, for better or for worse.
Yeah, right.
That's who I
am.
Right.
And
because of all of that, you learn, if you're open to learning, oh my gosh, the things you learn, right? So even with the webzine, I'd never worked at a magazine, let alone run one. But
what was it called, by the way?
Today Mag, TWO.
Okay,
it was all about healthy relationships.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and so it was really interesting. I ended up having 14 writers under me. I got it up to 25,000 readers a month. I was, working with other publications, cross-promoting. I was understanding web development, like all utilizing social media to promote it, going on and doing other cross-promotional things on TV and web and all that. But I think at the heart of no matter what I'm doing, whether it's therapy, whether it was working for the Post-Gazette, whether it was starting a consulting business or starting my own media company, it always came back to this sense of self-determination. I wanted to see what I could be. There was a real curiosity of, can I do this?
Right.
And not even in a way where it's like, I have to do this, but can I do this?
Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, and sort of being curious. And let me preface this by saying I do not have a golden parachute. I do not have a trust fund.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I've always
let's preface because
let's just be clear.
Yeah,
a lot
right.
of people in media and a lot of people that do the startup game, I don't think people are honest, and a lot of them have support.
Listen, man, yeah.
And I learned that when I would go to New York and I would meet people, I would think they were struggling like me. And then I would go to
It's a different struggle.
Like, wait a minute.
It's a trust fund struggle, right? Yeah. So
it actually doesn't matter if it works or not.
Yeah, right.
So I do think the hunger is another thing that drives you.
That's a layer to it.
Up off your ass every day because you don't have a choice.
Yep.
Like, there's nobody coming to save you.
Absolutely.
If this doesn't work, you better figure out plan C, plan D, plan E. So I always felt as though having multiple paths, multiple streams of income is always best because media is such a wild west.
Right.
It is such an unstable industry. It is an unforgiving industry. It does not care about you. It will eat you. It will
on to the next.
You out.
Yep.
So you have to, I have like elephant skin at this point. Like you have to be so thick-skinned, not just because of the way the public responds to your work, but the way that the industry does, the way that those people at
your
the top
peers
do,
even,
right?
Yeah,
and
right.
Your peers. And so, I think in order to protect yourself, what I always say, because people always say, I couldn't do what you do. People, they say such mean things, you blah, blah, blah. I always say when I release something into the world, even if I spent a year of my life working on it,
it's not yours anymore.
It doesn't belong to me.
Yeah.
And once I let go of it, it's like, I got to move on to the next.
Yeah, right.
And I'm a goal-oriented person. So it's like the end product's my least favorite part. Right? I like getting to it. I like crossing the line and then I go, cool, I'm out.
Yeah.
Now, that mentality doesn't always serve you well because I underplay and undervalue my wins a lot of times because I'm constantly going, I gotta go.
Yeah.
But I'm really trying to take more time to be present and acknowledge what I have accomplished, because if not, it's very easy to cycle into depression.
Yes, man. And it's, just like even like kind of talking with you now, it's just like, kind of making me think, I'm like, yeah, man, like I definitely underplay my wins, and it's not like an outward thing. I'm just like, yeah, man, like I just underplay my wins, but like just like kind of thinking back to like some of the stuff, I may have accomplished. I'm just like, man, like maybe I didn't, necessarily give myself the man, like that was dope, bro. Like,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
why
do we do that?
I don't know, but like,
Does anybody want that?
And I was gonna say, like it compounds as well. Like if you don't take that minute, those minutes.
But I have to ask you this: Are you good at showering love and praise on other people that you care about?
Of course, bro. Of course.
I'm your biggest hype girl.
Yeah.
Like I will love on you till you can't take it anymore. But my friends will be like, "Well, I want to do the same for you," and I'm like, "Oh no,
please,
I'm okay.
Please don't do that." Yeah, I'm gonna call the cops.
Yeah, like, that's too much for me.
Yeah,
but that's something we need to work
on. I know, right? I know.
You have to be able to receive.
Are you still in therapy work? No, yeah.
I'm getting therapy now. I've learned my lesson. Thank God for therapy.
Right. Again, fast forward and then like, thank you for that perspective. So like, would you say like as far as like your big break, would you say like that came on Pittsburgh Today, or like would you say like something else may have led to that?
I don't know if I've had a big break.
Really?
I think it's been a bunch of little breaks.
Okay, fair play. Yeah. Okay, okay.
I think I'm waiting for that big break.
Yeah.
I think it's coming. I feel things shifting in a good way.
Yeah.
I will tell you, the biggest break I probably had. You're gonna laugh because this is completely in opposition to what a big break was.
Yeah.
Was when I quit the Post-Gazette.
Oh, I mean, no, I mean, okay.
And here's why. I got called in for a meeting. They had a new managing editor who was incredibly cruel to me.
Damn.
It was the most horrible conversation I've ever had. I left feeling about 2 inches tall. I had a panic attack in my car, and I went home. I mean, she made me feel completely worthless.
Damn.
And I went home, and this was literally a week before the pandemic hit.
Wow.
And I couldn't sleep. And this little voice, and my dad had died 3 months prior, and then my grandmother died. And this little voice says to me, just quit. Just quit. And I don't know where that voice came from.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was me. I don't know if it was my higher self. I don't know if it was my dad or my grandmother or whoever. But something said, just quit. So I went in the next day. I went to the union, and I said, I'm out. I'm not going to be abused. I'm not going to be treated this way. I don't deserve this. I'm good at what I do. And they said, she's done this to other people. No one's been willing to go on record. Will you? And I said, hell yeah, I will.
Wow.
So I unintentionally became the focus of what was going on at the Post-Gazette with the union. And I've always been very pro-labor. But this really solidified for me the need for why we need to have more unions in workspaces. Because without the union, I think I would have felt so left into my own devices.
Yeah,
I would have been in a
right.
very horrible place.
I feel that though.
Horrible.
And shout out to them for even, because like they were like, yo, she's done this to like, and no one was willing to, and like for them to be open to be like, yo, she can't just keep doing this. Right. Like, yeah, right.
So I quit a job with healthcare.
Yeah.
And a week later, the pandemic hit.
Wow.
So talk about no plan, no money, no nothing.
Yeah, right.
But it was during that space where everybody was home.
Yeah.
Everybody was not sure what they were doing.
Sure.
I allowed myself a moment to reinvent. I had wanted to move forward anyway. I had kind of done all I could do at that point at the Post-Gazette. I also was doing the advice column there. I had started a podcast. I had done all kinds of things. But it was that level of like emotional turmoil that helped me turn a page. And I started to recognize that I could use my media work as a platform to uplift the things that I thought were important. And the Black Lives Matter movement had just started.
Yeah, right.
Everybody's focus was on justice. And so I found myself, that's how I ended up pivoting into the political news space.
Gotcha, okay.
So it was because of something that traditionally you might consider was pretty horrible and messed up.
Yeah.
I am so grateful that happened because I'm such a put your head down and work kind of person. I might have stayed there longer than I should have.
Yeah.
Had something not pulled me out. And so I say to people now, you don't have to wait till something that dramatic happens.
Sure.
You can pivot.
Yeah.
Bet on yourself.
Absolutely.
Bet on yourself and see what happens. And that's when I started the 2 businesses I'm running now.
That's correct. No. So like, that literally answers that question of, that freed you up, to, figure it out, mixed up shape. But like that was, because if you didn't make that choice, like, who knows where, you would be now, what I mean? So like, that's like a super, man, that's crazy. And like, again, shout out to that union for, again, giving you the, just even like the ability to be like, yo, like, how do you feel about that? Like that was,
just space.
That's what I'm saying.
I still remember the head of the union, like, as a woman, you're always very mindful of how you're coming off in a corporate setting.
Yeah, right.
And of course, I just was in the back room with the union head and 2 other guys. It was all men and me. They're really nice people.
Yeah.
But I just started to cry because I hadn't slept. I was so distraught by what had happened. Yeah. And I said, as I'm crying, I know I shouldn't be crying because, women, we're not allowed to cry at work because it makes us look weak, and I'm not weak. And the head of the union, he goes, are you kidding me? I want to cry too. He's like, this is horrible.
I'm crying right now, Nat. Yo, Nat, I'm crying right now. I'm crying for you got here. Yeah.
And it was just one of those moments where it was like, okay, I can be vulnerable with these people. and I have no choice but to be vulnerable, and that was very freeing too.
Yeah, right. No.
I don't think men sometimes understand just showing up for women in workspaces, what that can do.
Yeah, for sure.
It
goes a long way.
It really does. And for any kind of dynamic. But like when we show up for each other, we're just allies in spaces. Holy shit.
Yeah.
It really just make you feel like
absolutely.
Person.
So I do want to go over again just your list of accolades. It's crazy because this is nuts. So again, you were voted 40 under 40 by Pittsburgh Magazine in 2020. In 2022, you're recognized as one of the influential Pittsburghers changing the city through media. That's crazy. And then you also received the 1 in a Million award for your web series hashtag 5 Minutes With. Again, serious person here. So yeah, like, what do you think just allowed you to like kind of hit that stride for yourself? Just like kind of like what what change did you make or did not make, or just like kind of what did you sit with that let you take off like that?
I decided to look for mentors, and I met a mentor, and his name was Jerry, and he helped me figure out who I wanted to be as a brand. And I really recommend this. I don't care what industry you're in. You have to figure out who you are in that space and what you're bringing. And so what we did was he came up with the triangle, which is the 3 things that you want to define your work. And I want to inspire people, I want to educate them, and I want to activate them to make change in their community. And I do that through edutainment. Okay,
edutainment. Interesting. It's the first time I've heard that term. So, right, okay.
And so we can entertain, but we must educate.
Yeah, right.
And so for me, that triangle, those 3 words has been that catapult that's put me into every single space, because that becomes like your North Star.
Yeah, right.
Who are you? You are the same value system, like we talked about at the beginning, in all the spaces that you show up in. And when I started recognizing that about myself and realizing it's nice to get awards.
Yeah.
But it's way better to make change.
Yeah.
And it's way better to be a part of, like, what excites me, it's not so much, of course I want to succeed, right? Ego, but
yeah, right.
But I really want to see other people succeed, and I want to see equity in my community, and I want to see everybody have a chance to thrive, not just survive. And it's those things that are bigger than you. That's really what motivates me. And even with my businesses, I co-own X Squared Media, which is a consulting business, a digital media marketing company. And I get excited about, like, you're going to laugh. I get excited paying taxes and writing checks to my employees because I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I'm not a one-woman show anymore. I have a team.
Yeah.
I have I love my assistant. I'm like, I love paying you every month. I get really excited because I'm like, look at me, supporting this work is now being bigger than me. Like I can do for others now. I can fuel their dreams. And so, it doesn't matter what you're paying somebody else. It's just, you should pay them equitably. I just mean, what I mean is the fact that you're able to have enough to give to now another person that's helping you grow, and then in turn you're helping them grow. It's that exchange of energy that's really exciting to me. If I have to live in a capitalistic society, I want to be able to at least feel good about what I'm doing. And so finding people that want to grow with me and teach me, and I can teach them, that's like the money right there. And then of course, doing projects now that I feel really strongly about, and feeling confident now. I've done enough work that I know when something feels authentic to me, and when it doesn't, I'm not afraid to say this isn't a fit. And saying no is a complete sentence. And I've gotten better at saying no, because I used to say yes to everything and I was miserable. And it's because I was giving and giving, but a lot of those things were they were taking, and I was like left with nothing. And you have to keep some things for yourself. So space for myself has been a big thing too.
Yeah, man, that's again, completely agreed on all points. Just being able to, like, that first, just like even that first check you may be handed to, like, one of your, what was that? Like, you're just like, yo, this is crazy. I'm usually waiting for these.
Yeah. No, I know. It was this weird feeling of being like, I think I'm doing something.
Right.
Like, this isn't just me me anymore in my dining room, like making videos. It's like we're being asked to support community members with their work and build their brands.
Crazy,
and then with my own media work, getting funding to do projects was like, people are actually going to give me money so I can do this.
Yeah, right.
This is amazing.
Facts,
so it's that sense of awe and excitement. But you have to understand, success is certainly in no way just a
linear. Right. Yeah. Right.
It's like this, and half the time, all I hear all day is no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair. Yeah. No. Right.
All of a sudden.
Yeah. No one could say no to me anymore. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But let's be real. So you have to be realistic too, which is why I do have both companies going, and which is why you're always trying to find other streams of revenue, because it is a lot of feast and famine when you have startups.
Yeah, man, yeah.
And it's not comfortable. And
opposite.
It's the opposite.
Yeah, right.
But it's that itch that you just keep, that keeps you going. And I think that'll always be there no matter what I'm able to accomplish by myself or with others, because I think it's that drive of what else is possible.
Yeah.
What else can we do? What else can we dream? How big can we get this dream? I mean, I want like a whole, I want to own a media company that has my hands in all different types of big projects. And I want to have my own national show. I mean, those have always been the goals that have never changed.
Yeah, right.
And I'm inching there, but I also recognize, like, it is the journey that is where all the magic happens.
Yeah, right.
Because when you get to these destinations,
it's gonna be like, it's great to be here,
cool.
But yeah, right.
That's cool. And then I'm looking around like, where do I go now?
Yeah.
So it's that balance of the gratitude of making it to a destination and giving that space to it, but then also always just looking forward.
Yeah. How did it feel when you saw that you got, voted, 40 under 40 for Pittsburgh?
Oh my God. First of all, I was shocked. I mean, I will say, that is a big deal.
It's huge. Yeah. Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Especially that year too. Like that's insane.
I know. And, I was confused because, like I said, I had a rough year. Like I had left the Post-Gazette under duress. I was I was starting media companies. I was trying to get people to work with me. I was doing a lot, but sometimes when you're doing a lot, you also feel like you're doing nothing. If that makes any sense.
And what is that feeling?
I don't know.
That shit is crazy.
Yeah.
No. Facts.
I don't understand it, but so when I won, and then what was funny about it was so many people said to me, "Oh, I thought you already had," like, they were surprised that this hadn't already happened. So
That's crazy.
Like, what the?
Yeah, right.
I have one perception of myself, and then people have another perception. And I think it's important to always kind of keep that in mind. The way you view yourself, you're your own worst critic.
Man,
that's the other thing. It's like when I see stuff that people send me, on Insta or TikTok or whatever, and these crazy comments or emails I get, my mom's like, "Oh my God, how do you?" And it's like, believe me, there is nothing anyone could tell me that I haven't said way worse to myself. And I know that sounds awful, but in a weird way, it's also kind of freeing, because you're like, what? I'm tougher than you.
Yeah. I could fight.
And also, it is so easy. I will say this for anybody who has a dream to do anything,
right,
whether it's, this or anything else. It is so much easier to stand on the sideline and criticize.
No.
It is so much harder to roll up your sleeves and say, I'm going to do this. No matter how hard this is or what the end product looks like, I'm going to do this. And those are the people that I respect.
Absolutely.
And that I love, and I see you.
Absolutely. Natalie, I can't thank you enough for taking the time, to share your story and just get your perspective on a whole bunch of things. Like it was super dope, and you were just an absolute joy. But this is the point of the pod, where you can plug your 85 billion things that you host, that you're involved in. We know where they can find you if you want to be found on social media. But other than that, thank you very much for taking the time. Thank you so much. Absolutely. But the floor is yours.
All right. So if you want to check out my website, I have two, because that's what we're doing here.
There you go, two for them.
If you want to work with me on media projects, you can go to NatalieBencivenga.com. if you're looking to build your own brand or your company is looking to move their digital marketing strategy forward, you can go to xsquaredmedia.com. And you can find me on social media at Natalie Bencivenga. I'm always game for chatting with people and learning from one another. And if you want to watch, I do a digital show every week with Pennsylvania Capital Star called Facts Over Fear. You can check that out on their Instagram. I'm on KDKA Radio every week. I host a show there. You can check that out on kdkaradio.com. I'm always looking for guests. You're now going to have to come on.
Okay, absolutely, for sure.
He has to say yes now because it's recorded.
Absolutely.
And I'm probably forgetting some other things, but that's a good start. So just look me up, and I'd love to connect with you.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much. Listen, man, MIC Podcast, where everyone is a master of their creation. Natalie Bencivenga in the building. And we're out, bro. Peace.